Evening, folks. I have got a crazy story for you here. I'm not even kidding you. It is something that I heard on the X-22 report over on Facebook probably around a year ago, and some things on X-22 is credible, but some of the stuff they say over there is a little too QAnon for me. Just don't know where they get their information from. I cannot find their facts to be corroborated anywhere else, and so I can't usually report on stuff like that without wondering what the heck. I don't want to report anything that's not true. I don't want to be feeding y'all a bunch of lies because we all do make mistakes in this business, especially the amateurs like myself. And I will never purposely try to spin the story on something to fit a narrative because that's what I despise about the whole communication industry. Between the censorship and the spin, it's an ugly business, no doubt about it. That's why I'm trying to do the right thing here, folks. Now, I've got some reading to do for you just to explain this the best way I can, but there's also a pretty long video that Donald Trump Jr. put out, and it is definitely something to think about. Now, these are allegations at this point. Now, we've had somebody discussing it, but we've also had this information previously thrown out there by X-22 report, which is not in this report, but I remember the story specifically, so excuse me. That tells me that there's obviously more to this story than what this lady here said. It says a must watch. President Trump amplifies Dr. Jan Halper-Hayes. Now remember that name. Her Truth Social post. She says she suggests Space Force has evidence of the 2020 election fudge. Trump knew, she says, Trump knew if he presented any of those goods early on, we'd have a civil war. Now, that is her opinion. But there is a video about this. But before I get into the video, I'm going to read you a little more about it. Just kind of give you a little backstory as to what the heck I'm talking about. It says, I'm doing a lot of squinting here, folks. I don't have my glasses on today. It says, in a recent post of his social media platform, Truth Social, former President Trump praised analysis and comments made by Dr. Hayes. Says Dr. Hayes, a former global vice president of the Republican Overseas United Kingdom, made headlines with her statement during an appearance with a British morning news show. Now, she is part of the global Republican, I guess you would call it a coalition. It says Hayes, should I call her? Ms. Halper-Hayes pushed back against the widely held belief that Trump's case is based solely on political conspiracy theories. Of course, it's not conspiracy theories. We know what happened in 2020. Is arguing that there are significant questions about election integrity that require attention. She further contended that the current indictment has inadvertently given Trump a platform to present his case and expose possible election irregularities. And that is the absolute truth. He will be able to bring Nancy Pelosi in and ask her questions while he's got the Capitol Police Chief there and ask him some questions. He should be able to cross-examine them both involving these conspiracy charges because he can prove that the National Guard wasn't brought in by proxy of Nancy Pelosi because his people did ask for it and the chain of command is there. He'll be able to prove that one. And he'll also be able to bring in people like Joe Von Hutton Pulitzer, some of the people that witnessed a lot of things, some of the video footage of the things that happened at the TFC Center, and there's tons and tons of information. How about the 2,000 Mules? I already heard that Catherine Equilbert from 2,000 Mules will be working with Trump in the future towards what is going on with bringing this information forward. So I don't know if she'll be actually in on the case, but boy, they've got a ton of information if you've seen that movie 2,000 Mules. But let me get back on track to what I'm talking about. It says, during the interview, Ms. Halper-Hayes, now this is the crazy part, she claimed to be a part of a Department of Defense task force asserting that Space Force had evidence providing the fraudulent nature of the 20. Now I'm going to go ahead and instead of reading you the entire article, I'm going to go down here and let you listen to what this lady had to say. This is crazy information, folks.
Let's move across the other side of the pond.
And showed the corruption of the Biden presidency.
Well, it's the third time in 4 months he's been charged, and as we understand it, probably not the last, as he campaigns to regain the presidency. Meanwhile, his son, his eldest, Donald Jr., spoke to Nigel Farage last night, and he questions the timing of the indictment.
You know, I don't believe any of this has anything to do with January 6th. If it did, and if January 6th was everything that they said, why, Nigel, did they wait 2.5 years to charge him? I mean, the people that were there that did those, they were charged that day.
Well, let's talk to Jan Halper-Hayes, who's a US political analyst, and he's here in the studio. Good to see you, as always.
Good to see you.
There's so many people putting this...
Now, this is the Department of Defense lady, Miss Halper.
...down as a political conspiracy theory, but actually there are real questions to be answered here.
There are?
Yeah, of course there are. Of course there are.
What he's being accused of, but what part do you think is to answer that the 2020 election is going to be re-litigated because of this? They've made a huge, huge mistake with this one, because even though we thought what was going to happen was they were going to go after him for treason or sedition, but they did criminally charge him, but they didn't go to that extreme. As a result, he has due process, so he can subpoena people and bring things in. Now, let me say something about this 2020 election, is that Biden is the legitimate president, but he's the legitimate president of what is now the bankrupt U.S. corporation. And that was a treaty in 1871. Well, on September 12, 2018, Trump created an executive order. Within that, he outlined in future elections any kind of foreign or domestic interference, specifically for the 2020 election. So we say, how did he know some of these things were going to happen? Election integrity on both sides of the aisle is tough. It's really tough. But what this has done is it's opened the door for Trump to present his case.
Well, that's a good thing, isn't it? Because, what we see on this side of the pond is a very difficult situation where the legal system is politicised in the United States, which is abhorrent to us over here. So the fact that Trump can subpoena, some people saying it's a mistake by Jack Smith, but actually he can subpoena, people can actually see evidence from both sides. That's a sensible move.
Exactly. And it's a great mistake by Jack Smith.
Y'all catching this, folks? Trump not only is going to get to have his day in court and actually get to present evidence that has been denied this whole time involving the elections, but he's also going to get to subpoena people and bring them in, or they will get contempt of court charges and actually be in trouble, because this will be set up like a court of law. Now, this executive order that Trump put in place, I did hear about this, like I said, on the X-22 report, and I never really checked up on it because a lot of times I don't trust their credibility. I think it's more entertainment over there a lot of times than it is facts, and so it's not one of my go-to stations for sure. But I did happen to hear this, and I thought, man, that's a far stretch. And now I'm hearing it for the second time. To me, that's confirmation there's something to this story. And this lady says she was a part of the Department of Defense. I don't believe she'd be coming on TV making all these lies up, destroying her own credibility, if there wasn't some truth to this. But who knows? Maybe she's trying to sell a book. Over on Great Britain News, she seems to know what she's talking about, or thinks she does. But this is great news for Trump. He may have what they call a wild card, or an ace up his sleeve, that they don't even know about. There's a lot of things that went on with all the executive orders that the public is probably not privy to, including this one she's talking about. And if that's the case, and they have all the numbers for the real numbers for the 2020, boy howdy, it's going to look strange. We put them side by side with the other numbers. We'll have to see how all that goes down. This may be, well, let me just say, this is going to be the most explosive ride we've ever had politically in our history of our country in over 200 years. I mean, this is Civil War, Revolutionary War equivalent, changing of the guard, rooting out the right, We've got to fix this situation. Trump's got to win in 2024 or our country's doomed. That's just my own personal opinion, but that's what I see. And I think we're getting there. Like Trump said the other day, only one more indictment before I will be over the top for the presidency. Made a joke about it. I thought that was hilarious. Because you know the Georgia indictment's coming soon. But it looks like Jack Smith done shot himself in the foot behind indicting Trump over the very things that Trump has had to keep his mouth shut about. Let's go ahead and get back into it.
That he's done that. Absolutely great. See, the thing is, think about Edward Snowden and all the information he had. Think about the fact that our military, our Department of Defense Space Force, if you think that they don't have the actual real results from the election, then you're fooling yourself.
Yeah, but what we do know with this is we're told that there are plenty of notes from people, including Vice President Pence, that there are some recordings of Donald Trump acknowledging that actually what he said in public was nonsense. That some of these states, whether he claimed he was out saying look, Detroit, it's corrupt, it's all corrupt, the results are corrupt. And that when in reality, he knew it wasn't. That's illegal.
But you know what? That's what someone's claiming, but that's not the fact, and that's not what Donald Trump really has ever said. He's been very, very clear. I mean, the issues were, for example, in Pennsylvania, the Supreme Court of the state of Pennsylvania stepped in and changed some of the election laws. Under our Constitution, it's only the state legislators that can do that. 2,000 Mules, the film that came out, what they did, they spent over $4 million tracking the phones. And the reason it's only 2,000 mules is that based on the visits to the drop boxes in Georgia, they had to have gone over 10 times. And they've got all the film for that. So the thing is that the election integrity is so different and so problematic in every single state. But that doesn't mean that the machines didn't do something, that there were some other kind of finagling, but the long and short, go ahead.
Well, it doesn't, but that's where conspiracy comes in, is it? To say, well, it doesn't mean that something didn't happen. Well, there's no evidence that it happened. I mean, there's how many court cases did the Trump campaign try to bring? Nothing's gone in his favor.
This guy needs to watch that movie, 2,000 Mules, and then tell us the same story. He's obviously a lefty. He obviously is in denial, or he just doesn't want to know the truth, or he's just carrying the water for Great Britain news.
Okay, wait a minute. Everyone, the media goes, oh, there were 60 court cases that were rejected. No. There were 3. He won 2, he lost 1, 57 were never heard because they had no standing. And standing means that the person bringing the case has to claim some kind of impact or injury. So it's really, the media did that, and they're great at doing that, but it was a fallacy in there. And the thing is that, I sit on a task force at the Department of Defense, and the thing is, they've got the goods. They've got the goods, and Trump knew that if he presented any of the goods early on, we'd have a civil war. That he really felt that the people needed to see how bad it could get.
And that's the sense that we're getting from Trump's lawyer about what his defense is going to be. So this is all going to be based on free speech, the First Amendment in the US Constitution, that he had a right to say what he believed. And he believed that the election results were not as was put out. But the point is, if you live in a democracy and you believe in a democracy, then that means that even if you don't like the outcome of an election, you respect that, because it's a democratic vote.
Well,
there's a difference between accepting the outcome and being censored, lied to, finagled, cheated, and just plain blatantly blocked out of having the opportunity just to make sure things were on the up and up. We know what happened in several cities, several states, all in the big cities and the big swing states. Every single one of them had real problems, and it couldn't have been accident, folks. We all know better. And these reporters just cannot get on board with the fact that they weren't perfect. I'll just leave it at that.
A Democratic vote, and so therefore he should be silent about it.
He has a right to speak, but the issue, of course, is if he then acts to subvert that election result.
Oh, so that because you think he's being criticized because in Georgia he said, "Can you find me 12,000 votes?" Or, you know, the thing is, he didn't try to subvert anything. What he's really done is he set up the deep state to come out, and that's why we're seeing all these things. I mean, it was revealed with whistleblowers and Hunter Biden's ex-best friend that in 2015, the head of Burisma gave Joe and Hunter Biden $10 million bribe. In 2018, Joe is on TV publicly saying that he threatened that unless they got the prosecutor fired, that he wasn't going to let them have their $1 billion in support. In 2019, Trump calls Zelensky to find out about what went on to get the prosecutor fired, and he gets impeaced.
Yeah, he was over the target.
We've lived with it for a long time.
We're almost out of time. I just want to pick you up on one thing. You said earlier on, Donald Trump has been very clear on this. Is he a man that you believe? I mean, look, he's about as believable as a chocolate teapot, isn't he?
Look, I know that, thank God you got the negativity in at the end and not the beginning. I can always count on you for that, always.
But it's a legitimate point to say that Donald Trump is a man who always speaks the truth. That can't be the case. I mean, it's hardly the case of any leader, to be fair, but I mean, definitely not Donald Trump.
Well, I don't know if I said everything or always, because I do call him the embellisher in chief, because he's a marketer. But in terms of telling us things, optics, you better believe that he's very much a straight shooter in terms of actions that he's going to take or what he thinks needs to be done. You know, they made fun of him because they assumed he broke protocol and walked in front of the Queen. No, if you go back and look at it, you will see he looked at her. She gave a wave with her hand. He proceeded. She took a couple of steps, he stopped, and he waited for her to join. That was an optic to tell us that he then was going to bankrupt the U.S. corporation because it was the Vatican, the Crown, and the U.S. that was part since 1871. And we were giving you our tax dollars. We were paying back. You know, forget this Tea Party and without taxation, without representation. We owed you a lot of money because you helped us in the Civil War. And so that is what Trump has now, he told the Queen, I'm ending this. We're dissolving this corporation. We're going to go back to being a republic and we'll all be separate. The Pope wasn't happy. You should find the picture of him visiting the Pope. It took 650 planes to remove our gold from the Vatican Bank.
I'm not very happy about it, Jan, to be perfectly honest. We could do with your money at the minute. Keep it.
Now, I would say this lady is probably got some either really great sources, knows this to be a fact, or somebody's lying to her. That's all there is, folks. But strangely enough, just about everything she said here, I heard almost a year ago. I don't know what to think. That's why I kind of don't like bringing videos like this, but Trump praised her on Truth Social. Just basically give her props up. And Donald Trump Jr. shared the video, and I think everybody needs to see it. So if you're still around, sticking around to the video to this point, like, subscribe, and share, and definitely share. This